helping tool, like a study tool.
Test one, two,
Chegg
microphone.
is literally for cheating.
Can someone send something in the chat if audio is working?
Study, but it really is primarily for cheating.
Especially because like half the people who respond to questions, like, they don't go into all the details.
Yeah, they don't. Or if you're in algorithms, they're literally just
Okay, thank you.
wrong.
Yeah.
You can't check shit in that class.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started, everyone. So, all right. So glad you guys could make it. This week is, as we have previously mentioned, project presentations. Before that, just a couple of really quick announcements. So next week will be our OpenCV game jam, not game jam, OpenCV workshop. And it'll be on using OpenCV with Unity. We're going to send out a little bit more information on that right before the meeting next week. So if you want to, if you already have Unity or you want to get Unity and download and follow along, you'll be able to. We also have the Fall Break Game Jam, which will be kicking off October 7th at 6 p.m. You can participate online, but we're also going to have an in-person kickoff, I believe, in the room next door to this one, whatever Shelby 1124 is. So if you want, you can come to that and we'll unveil the theme there. And we'll also have free energy drinks for anyone who wants to come and grab a bunch to help them in their game jam endeavors. That being said, we are ready to get started with project presentations. So up first tonight is Project Octagon. And I'll give the floor to you.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew, project lead for Project Octagon. A lot of projects because that's what we like to do here. Here's the first project update. So programming wise, we've been working on trying to get the grid system working. Octagonal grids don't really have a great history in video games, so it's kind of starting from scratch. Not a lot of tutorials there, but Hugh and Michael have been working hard on that. Yeah. So design-wise, I've solidified the basic gameplay, the 4 basic buildings, and how insurgents work. I think they're a great mechanic, adds a bit of variety, and a bit of hectic gameplay for you.
We're not sharing the slides.
That's important.
So sorry about that for y'all in the Zoom chat.
Not exactly the most beautiful slides out there.
That's okay. The first place in my heart. Okay, you should be good now. So sorry. Carry on.
So right now I'm testing mortars and runways. They should be the last basic buildings that are available. So far, I think they're pretty interesting. We'll see if they need to be toned with more games. And then I want to work on making factions and faction projects. That's going to probably be where the majority of playtesting is, just because there's a lot of matchups you can have, and you want to make sure everything's balanced, or as balanced as can be given the limitations. And then also, I want to make maps by hand. We were thinking about doing maps by just generating it, but that's a lot more work than just making like 6 maps and testing those, because making an algorithm that tries to make a balanced map that's also interesting is really, really hard. And I don't think we have the time to do that. One of the main hurdles we've had is playtesting. Again, I've kind of spammed the Discord about that, and big thanks to the club leaders for helping me trying to get people in. It's very important. This is a 2-player game, so I can't test it just myself. And my roommate has actual college things to do. So if you want to come help, even one game, whatever, that's a huge help. You don't have, you're not leaving your project you're working on or whatever. So yeah, just playtesting is cool. So music and sound effects wise, Daniel has been working on our sound effects. We've been doing a pretty good job so far. And then main menu music and ambient music, we have our, they're loopable and they're pretty seamless. I think they're just a tremendous job by Matthew. Not going to attempt his last name because it's something Eastern European, and I can't speak Eastern European. But yeah, it's just an amazing job done by him. Yeah, up next, we're going to try and just get more sound effects up. There's, I think, a lot of people underestimate how many sound effects video games need. All right, so pixel art, this was done by Hugh. So yeah, I think it looks pretty dang good. He added some flags on the buildings to show ownership, which I never thought about, and I love that. Got some mountains going on, some desert. That's kind of the theme of the game now, is it's set in a desert, just because I think it looks best when we add in the ownership of octagons, which we kind of have to decide on how we're going to implement that. What I'm thinking right now is we just add a color overlay to an octagon, so you can still kind of see what's under it, like those dunes, but it'll be colored whatever faction color you are. And here's some of the faction art. Here's the 3 I've made so far. The top one, the little beaver, is the SSU Engineering Corps. The one to the left is the not CIA, and then the one to the right is the cavalry. I'm not an artist, so please critique these. I don't know how to make them look pretty. Also, it's just like, I don't want to be full screen anymore. That's fair. All right, so quick presentation. You have any questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
So it's kind of like a military game.
Yeah, that's the theme right now. It's more of like an abstract view of it. You're not commanding different units around. The octagons are just kind of representing an area of control. And you're going around building buildings, so it's a very bird's eye view of everything. Yep.
Would you be training outside of the desert, like to say forests or other areas?
So octagon variants have been things we've been toying with. The mountains are an example of that. I was playing with the idea of having desert dunes or some other hard thing to travel, but gameplay wise, it was just atrocious to deal with and I hated it. So it's gone. I'm gonna implement probably having some sort of body of water, like a lake or ocean of some sort. But for the most part, the biome is just gonna be desert because it fits best with what we're going for.
Have you made any considerations of like environmental hazards or anything like that?
Yeah, so in the same theme, if I had more time to experiment with that, I certainly would. But it's not really my top priority right now. The main thing I want, when you're making the maps, this is only a 10 by 10 grid of octagons. And when you introduce variants like that, it gets really, really crowded really fast. So I think the mountains and the lakes are really all I need right now. But obviously, if there's some other need in the future, or if I have more time, we'll implement that.
Second question, speaking of time, how long does a normal one of these games actually take to play?
About 30 minutes. It depends because it was pretty bad in the beginning because stalemates were certainly possible. But with the factions and the insurgents, it's consistently between 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Yep.
You mentioned multiplayer. How was that being implemented?
Yeah, we're not going to attempt netcode. I said that from the start. We're not doing that. There's no hidden information between players, so it's just going to be same PC. I was going to say same box, but same PC. You can just switch who's sitting in the keyboard chair, and it'll work fine, just like that. We are planning on maybe trying to get an AI in there, so that is a stretch goal, but it's mainly intended to be human players against each other.
So how many factions do you have done and how many do you plan on having done?
Yeah, so where is it? I don't know where. All right. So these three are just the artwork that I've done. The cavalry and the engineering corps I've played with before, though the engineering corps kind of needs to be tweaked. I'm planning on having 6 factions. They're all listed here. All of them have an ability right now. It's just a matter of needing to actually test it, see what's balanced, how much they need to be changed, things like that. Yep.
For each of the factions, which makes them kind of different abilities for each one.
Yeah, so each faction has an ability. This is usually something, it's like once per turn, you can do this. For instance, the owl here, the CID, it can once per turn, or that's not even once per turn, but during its turn, it can do things that allow the insurgents to keep expanding. And then every faction also has a faction project, which is a big building that you kind of keep building up. For the CID, this one is when it's completed, you get to completely control, like you turn all of an insurgents group's octagons to your colors. So they're supposed to kind of work together with this. You're kind of farming insurgents, like making it bigger, which could come and, they could come and beat you up. But if you can stick it out, you can get a huge amount of land real fast.
Story or reason why they're fighting?
So it's very loosely based in the 80s around like if you're familiar with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, it's kind of like that, but the Cold War wasn't very cold. So it's just 2 superpowers duking it out. It's kind of intentionally pointless that they're not really fighting over anything. They're just fighting to fight. But as far as story goes, there might be some lore for the factions, but it's just going to be a paragraph at most. All right, well, if you don't have any other more questions, let's do that.
So up next, we have Rogue Soulslike.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm David, the project lead for Rogue Soulslike, and I'm just here to update you on our progress so far. It's not really a whole lot in terms of things you can see or like graphics or like playable game, because we've been mainly focusing on like the core of it that we can build on later. So Yeah, so our goals from the start are to create a strong framework so that other things can be added way more easily and like faster. Because a lot of people will go into making a game and they'll have like no plan for the future. So what ends up happening is they try and add something and it doesn't fit into the way they're doing it currently. And it drastically slows down time or it slows down progress and makes things hard to add. So I'm going from like, I guess, a like center out approach where I start making sure everything is good from the base and that other features that we want planned can basically just be like slotted into the systems we have. So some ways we are doing this is what I call the screen system, which is a class we have. And so each screen, be it the main menu, the main gameplay, you're opening your inventory, has its own logic function, draw function. So that way we can easily switch between like what's being drawn on the screen and what's being like what controls are being input very quickly, instead of having to have a bunch of nested if statements or anything like that, like you see with a, I don't know, Yandere simulator, if you want a bad game that uses a bunch of if statements. But yeah, so instead you can just switch out the screens. And yeah, so it's like, it just makes it way easier to implement any kind of different sets basically of input. So like a main menu, you want to click on things, but if you're fighting, you probably don't want to be clicking around on things. You can just easily swap out between those classes instead of having some kind of weird set of if statements. And the state system is very similar. It's the same idea went behind designing it, but it's like each thing a player can do is its own state that the player's in, and that's tied to its own animations and stuff. So if the player does a roll, that's a roll state, that can easily just say, okay, the player has a variable set that as the roll state is rolling right now, and when it finishes, it exits, he sends back to like the neutral standing state. So that makes it really easy to add new animations in, new things he can do, like a roll or new attacks. Makes it really easy to fit it into that framework that you can easily just like queue up, and when the turn comes, it just slots that in and says, okay, he's doing a roll now, and it progresses through the different steps of the roll every frame. And other things we've worked on is a vector class for vector normalization, which basically means that if you move at a diagonal, it prevents the characters from moving faster than their movement speed, because if you have a movement speed of like 2 and you go hold straight up, you're going to move 2. But if you hold up and to the right, like W and D, then you're actually moving faster than your standard move speed because you're making a triangle and moving at that angle. So with vector normalization, you can make sure no matter what inputs are being pressed, he never goes faster than his move speed. That's not just the player, that's any enemies or projectiles. So that will keep things consistent now that we've made that. And we've also been working on a texture dictionary to avoid memory leaks. All of the textures will be loaded into one class that manages them and can easily have them loaded and disposed of or removed from memory, so that you don't have like random textures being loaded in weird places. You can keep them all in one place and close out that memory easily. And we've also set up or been working on setting up a GitHub that will allow us to just easily add things to the project and do version control and all that, which will be very helpful since we have like 5, I think, programmers on the team. So if we all make a different change at the same time, it'll make it way easier to aggregate all those changes. And our upcoming goals. The first thing we want to do now that we have the core is add combat, because all of the exploration aspects are nice, like the perk system and all of that. Those are all like a part of the game, but it doesn't matter if you can't fight things. You know, that's like the end goal is you want to traverse the levels, you want to level up so you can fight things. So we want to make sure you can at least fight things before we add any of the extra, since that's like the key. So we want to add stuff like the different types of states now that we have that system, like attacks, rolls, enemies, like static objects, like walls. We want to add all of the stuff that would be in the core gameplay, like hands-on, more so than the exploration aspect. And yeah, that's That's all I have for the presentation. I'm open to any questions if anyone has anything. It's going to be like it is not entirely procedurally generated, but it's going to be kind of, I guess, Binding of Isaac like in terms of the levels, how it's like there's a bunch of pre-made levels, but the way they're stitched together is procedural. It's not going to be something like the original Rogue or NetHack, where everything is like generated like to the square. It's going to be like preset levels that are stitched together procedurally. You first. I'm gonna go right to left. So for the most part, we're just using IntelliJ, like professional edition that you can get with Auburn, because it has a bunch of stuff like Code Together, I think it's called, that allows you to basically do screen share collaborative coding to work on that. It also has built-in like GitHub integration, which is super nice. And other than that, right now it's just IntelliJ Professional Edition and just libgdx is the engine. We're going to use Tiled, if you've heard of that, for level design, but we haven't gotten to level design yet. So, but yeah.
You didn't say anything about design or animation or your progress on that.
So right now we don't have a graphic artist, so we're kind of putting that off until we determine what to do about that. Depending on what happens, I might end up just doing some like attempts at pixel art or something just to get something.
I was like, work on pixel art. Well, I was actually wondering if you guys had actually, I was actually wondering if that's actually looking for a graphic artist.
Yeah, talk to me after the meeting and I'll get you in the in our group on Discord if you want to help.
How are you handling entities and stuff like that in the scene? Are you just looking to look at every list to somebody? And like, how are you managing that?
We're probably going to use either just like, yeah, some kind of array or like a linked list. I haven't determined if I want to use an array or a list yet. Some kind of like collection that keeps them all. And because we have a main like, I guess, class that stores more permanent information in the screens. And we'll probably just have some kind of collection of the enemies there. And every time it goes through like a logic, like calls the logic function, it'll go through that and like run their AI or nothing if it's just like a wall. But yeah.
You mentioned each entity has its own draw function.
Yeah.
How is that working?
So, well, not each entity will have its own draw function. It's that each like screen will have its own draw function. So it's like the main menu is going to show a completely different set of images than like combat or your inventory, so that each of those has their own draw function, which determines what to get. But each enemy will have its own animation. Its own animation like class. So each enemy will have like a get texture, and it will say like, okay, we're in this frame of this animation, so we need to display this texture. So that will all be done within the entities, but they won't have their own draw function, more like a get texture function.
I have a question about your texture system.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is it like, are you doing different like spreadsheets per entity, or are you doing like a big like a texture type system?
I plan on doing big sprite sheets per entity, because libgdx has tools to automatically like, I don't know the word, like de-stitch the sprite sheets itself. So yeah, but also just for cohesion, I guess I like to keep things like each sprite sheet per entity, because it makes it way easier to like edit and just make sense of what's happening. So in my opinion, at least.
Is this like more of like a fantasy or sci-fi, or like what's?
I'm kind of thinking fantasy, but kind of like a high fantasy type thing, more so than like dark fantasy, I guess.
Okay. What do you mean by high fantasy, like Legend of Zelda?
Legend of Zelda is a bit too high. I'm thinking more like Tolkien-esque, like yeah, like Lord of the Rings, the Silmarillion type stuff. Not like, I don't know, Legend of Zelda is a bit too whimsical. That's like above high fantasy, a little bit more like I would say Tolkien around that kind of thing. Yeah, like the guy who wrote the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit.
I thought that was a game for a second.
No. Well, if that's all the questions, thank you for watching.
Up next, we have Madman First Contact. Oh, I need to change the screen share. Hold up.
Hello, I'm Anish. I'm the project leader for Madmen First Contact, and this is the update. So first up, we've been working on the first person player movement. So our programmers coded the basic movement of the player, and I've rigged the first person player model. The next steps are adding a pistol to the left hand and animating rest, walk, run, and basic attack animations, and then tuning animations based on test gameplay when we stitch it to the code. And then we've also been working on the boss, and the base mesh is done, but we're now adding the detail. The next step in the boss, after we add the detail, is developing its weapon and rigging and animating it, including the eyes on its body. And then also have a scope update. So we don't have a lot of people on our team, so the new plot for the game is more concise, and honestly, I think it's better. And we basically took the first level that starts on the ship out. Instead, we'll start the game once the pirates already been deserted on the island. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got, really. We also got music. Shout out to Matthew. We got a beautiful score. So, and then, yeah, that's about it. Any questions? Go for it.
Go back to the first boss. It looks like it was inspired by. Was it inspired by the Kraken?
I mean, kind of, yeah. It's just meant to be inspired by like nautical monsters and also Lovecraft, kind of. So,
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Something like Lovecraft.
yeah.
What did you? So do you make that? You have to make that. What do you guys use to make that mesh
Blender.
blend? Okay. Same thing with the player model.
Yes. Everything is done on Blender. Go ahead.
So for this player model, I noticed that it's just kind of like arms and legs. But how are you gonna position the camera so that when he looks down, he's not just going to look inside of his leg? If that makes sense.
Well, my plan was just to have the camera slightly in front of the legs, and then basically when you rotate, kind of like I forgot what the technical word for it is, but you like cap the camera off to a certain angle.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? That's it. Oh,
How do you rig the? I noticed you had like a seemingly pretty elaborate rig on the basement.
oh, that was shout out to Rigify. So I got Rigify and I figured it out, and I actually didn't know you could use it to generate another rig after you position the skeleton inside. And yeah, so it's just a plugin. It's a free plugin for Blender. Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, that's it.
All right, we have Chromatica as our next presentation, and I need to pull a. It's this one, yeah. Yeah. You're good. This one's the right one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our update on Chromatic. So for gameplay, we decided to do 4 levels with the main level in the middle. So basically, as you progress, you'll do a green level, a blue level, a yellow level, and a red level. The camera will follow as you go, and you go into each scene, beat the level, respawn back, and go do the same thing for each of them. We're basically doing a tile mapping train. So we have a bunch of sprites that our graphic design team has been drawing, and we're basically dynamically adding them in as we go. So we've been drawing out the levels, and each of them will be unique. So the first one will be green, and then we'll have like a green and blue, if that makes sense. And then we have a color unlock system. So after you defeat the boss, we have scripts that will like gray out the colors and then bring them back to life. So character progression, after you beat each boss, your character will evolve. These are some drawings done by our graphic team. So you're basically like gaining new characteristics as you reach each level. So once you beat the main level, you get a double jump. You'll get boots that are green and brown. Dash for the blue level, you'll get a cape with the dash lines behind you. You get a shield for yellow level, and then some sort of red projectile for the red level. For enemy designs, we have 3 types of enemies. We have basic ones that are going to be your simple turrets and melee, just shoot projectiles and melee attack you. We're going to have a unique enemy for each level. So for example, we'll have something related to the grass level, like a squirrel or a worm or something. Water level will have a fish or something. And then at the end, we have decided on unique bosses. We have a frog for the green, kraken for the blue, armadillo for the yellow, and dragon for the fire. And then these are the sprites we've drawn for the green level so far. Currently, we're working on drawing the sprites for these. We have one person drawing sprites for the main character, and then we're going to start enemy design soon. I don't think the music link works, but also shout out to Matthew. He's been doing a great job. He put together something over the weekend for us, and it sounds really good. And I can like get in the Discord later on, or he can if he wants to. Oh, it did work. But yeah, so that's the demo sound for our green level. Yeah, I don't know how long it's gonna be or how it's gonna loop, but you can. I think it loops, but. But it will basically be adding instrumentals as you go. So you'll start in the green level with this kind of simple instrumental, and then we'll add sort of instrumental to the blue level that fits the theme, and then something to the yellow one and something to the red one. So it'll build up as you go, and the boss fight should be really like colorful music, colorful visuals, and stuff like that. Okay, I think it's looping, so I'm gonna skip ahead. Oh. And then this is something we put together last week. We've added a bit more since then, but this was a video I had on my computer. So pretty simple. We just basically we don't have any main character sprites, but we have moving, climbing, jumping, and then we have all the colliders working correctly. So this is something we've been working on. And then level design painting has been going really well. So we've added an enemy since then too. So they basically move side to side and can shoot projectiles and then just follow you around. But currently we're working on having a basic combat system where we have health, and that's about it. Currently we just one-shot things, but until then we're gonna add health bars and like range and stuff like that. And then for the next 3 weeks, we're gonna finish the character abilities and make them work flawlessly. We're still working on sprites for the main character, main level, and we'll begin animation. We want to add more interactable things with the level design, like rope swings, waterfalls, and such. And then we want to have the basic enemies flushed out along with the combat system. And then before we get to the bosses and the like full out flushed out combat system. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a bit of a question. Well, I kind of have a question for Matthew. I want to figure out, well, I have 2 questions technically. It's one is like, what program did he use to make the music? But also I wanted to know how did he make the music?
Matthew, I think he's in the Zoom. You want to unmute if you want to answer the question, or if you're listening?
I'm sorry, you talking to me?
No, Matthew, for the sound.
Oh,
Okay, well, if you unmute Cersei, we'll go ahead and just,
Discord or something and then build this piece there.
okay. Anyone else have any questions?
How are you doing the pathfinding for your
For now, anything that, we have just characters that move side to side. We have just dynamic variables that we can just set to have them move back and forth. And then just a simple unit, it's just follow script. So we get getting the position and running locations based on that. And like moving, nothing really escalating up and down, but more just side to side ground walking.
Are you gonna be implementing an item system of sorts to give your character power ups?
So there's not actually an item system, and like you're not switching between items. It's more like you get abilities as you beat a level. So like you get the double jump boost after you beat the first level, but it's not like you'll be using health potions or things like that. It'll be like a one-shot level that you'll respawn at the beginning. It's something we might add in the future, but for now we just want to get like base gameplay function working, and that's not part of it.
I'm curious as to how you're approaching like the scopes. Are you doing like, we're gonna make the green level in its entirety and then moving on to the next one? Or are you kind of trying to make them all at once?
So we decided to work on the green level together first, mostly because artistically, I think it's easier for everyone to work on the same kind of thing and then move on. Gameplay function, like the mechanics with the main character, I think those are independent. So we have 3 teams of like 3 people each for programming. So we have 3 on less level design. They're just working on the green level for now, just to get like functionality. Enemy designs are just working on the basic enemies, which apply to everything. And main character people are working on just abilities, which will also apply to everything. But just the level design is really focused on the scope of the levels. Any other questions? All right, awesome.
Okay, so for our last presentation, we have stop motion.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nick, the project lead of this stop motion project. And we have a tiny update. So, yeah, can I move this? Okay, something like this. So we have finally finalized on how the game will be. So we have decided on a Donkey Kong style vertical platformer. And because we are making a puppet game, we decided that making a more puppetry directed game will be cool. So the premise is that a creator creates 2 puppets. One is the first batch. That one is not very good. It will be the antagonist. And the second one is a bit better made puppet, which is the protagonist. So the antagonist puppet pushes the protagonist puppet from the shelf. And basically the game is a Donkey Kong style game where the protagonist puppet is trying to get on the top of the shelf, jumping from a drawer to a drawer, while the antagonist puppet fires down burning matches. So losing condition is that the match hits the protagonist, and winning condition is that protagonist reaches the top of the shelf and smashes the antagonist with a hammer in just a single animated action. Like we're not going to program hammer smashing. So right now we have identified following animations for protagonist. It's the idle animation, walking, jumping, dash, which most probably will be just moving the protagonist from a location to a location. So not really a puppetry animation, taking damage and that. For antagonist, it's idle, walking, firing, and that, which is also the ending sequence animation. For missile burning match, from other ideas, there are ideas to use dodge for protagonist, for the drawers to close and open on their own, and also to put some nails and like different obstacles on the drawers as additional obstacle and additional damage to the protagonist. For drawers, we plan to take not build drawer ourselves, but to take picture of drawers either in library or any other suitable drawer here at university. If we hope we will find. And the plans for the October is to build the game without puppet animation and start the puppet animation. That's it, tiny update.
Wait, are you?
Yeah, sorry.
So like this game said stop motion, and so is it like every single time in action? It's like Donkey Kong. Like,
It's stop motion because it's stop motion animated. That's it.
Oh, it's animated in stop
Yeah.
motion. So like, oh, so it's like a puppet set. Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a working name. Maybe it will change in the end.
Okay, that makes okay. I thought when you meant like stop motion, you meant like, oh, every single time an action is made like different, like it's like a chess piece. Every single time you make a move, the entire board rearranges from like active spaces and like empty spaces.
Yeah, no.
Okay, that's where I stopped.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas on what the puppets would look like?
So we had a little argument about that. My original idea was a more Caroline or Kubo on the Strings style, more like serious puppets. But right now the idea is to make them more funny, funny animated, yeah, that kind of. So it will be fun, like to smash one with a hammer. Yeah. So it was decided to go towards more like fun looking and childish looking puppets. Any other questions?
Yeah. Another question. What is the workflow like for basically staging a puppet and trying to get its positions in and then implement that into the game?
So we haven't tried any yet, but the idea is that we make the puppet, we animate puppet, so one animation in a sequence. So for example, we want to do walking animation. So today we need to finish the walking animation from start to the end. We do that, and so the puppet is based on the color of the puppet itself. We choose a background, so we can remove the background later for each shot. And then basically the shots become just your usual sprite shots. It's just the puppety feel that we will be trying to achieve.
How do you plan on doing learning?
So right now, one suggestion is to just draw fire. The other suggestion is to actually lit it on fire. Take a lot, like you can take a sequence of shots, right, and then choose some shots from it. So which one will do kind of depends. Yeah. Yeah, the only animation that we are sure for right now is drawers, just taking one shot closed, one shot open. Any other questions? Yeah.
What frame rate are you going to do your animation?
I think we haven't discussed it yet, but I think I have discussed with the officers. I don't remember the 12. I think I said 12 shots. Yeah.
12 frames.
12 frames. Anything else?
Okay, so that is project update. Thank you everyone for coming out. The only other announcement I believe we have is the next project updates will be October 25th. So really excited to see what people are able to do with their games between now and then. These have all been just absolutely amazing so far. So I'm not missing anything. All right, have a good week, everyone.
Also,